Yep, we're good.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We've got our clinic called K12 Art and Music in the Virtual World. I'm Marty Kral. I'm the music department chair over at Ashland High School. And through a series of different events, I also now help run the media arts department, which would traditionally be called like a video production department.
I'm Cameron Dedrick, likewise through a series of events. I'm also a media arts teacher. I'm a visual art teacher, and we're both technology coaches at our building.
Cameron's my assistant marching band director, and we do have a football game tonight, so I don't want you to think we just dress the same on a regular day, but yeah,
Right.
we'll be busting out of here pretty quickly to go get the band. Thank you. We're all sorry. It's true. All right, so our goal today is to give you some tips, some tricks when it comes to teaching art and music in the virtual universe, as well as some guidelines. And I just want to start by saying we all have great ideas, and we all have different levels of execution of those great ideas. And what we're hopefully going to do is maybe give you some ideas on how you can better do that, or safely do that, or legally do that. So I thought a great way to start would be with the boring, dry, legal stuff. So I, in no means am any expert on this section I'm going to show you about copyright, but we're all going to do what we want to do, and I'm not going to slap anybody's hand, and I know that there are times where some of these things I don't hit as well as I should, but the more I read about it, the more informed I get, and that's really what we're trying to do, is just inform you what's out there and what we should do. So when we start here, if you've all got this packet, we're just going to run through that. If you don't, if you were signed up for this clinic as of like Wednesday, I emailed you a digital version, but you can always just scan that QR code and pop up the digital version, and we'll keep that updated as best we can. So what you're going to hear a lot in terms of copyright is this DMCA. So I'm going to click on this hyperlink here, and let's see if we can make that a little bit bigger. That stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. This is going to be just about the driest, most boring document you could possibly read. But this was basically, so in 1998, the world was getting a lot more digital. Things are happening, and this was the initial reaction of how do we make sure rights are protected for content creators, although they didn't call it that back then, right? So this covers a lot of things about infringement of copyright and how we're doing it. I suggest knowing that this exists. I don't suggest really memorizing what's in here. But what this does is it's that initial nugget that says, yeah, even if it's digital, it's still somebody's property, it's still somebody's idea, it still belongs to somebody. So if you ever see anything called the DMCA or refers to the DMCA, they're talking about this document here. Now this is where it gets more interesting for us, the TEACH Act. And TEACH is just a forced acronym to sound educational. Let's see, we'll zoom that in. So it says right here, Technology, Education, and Copyright Harmonization Act. We had harmonization so we could have the word teach, right? So this came about in 2002, and this is what talks about what we've all heard. Well, if we're using it as a teacher, it's legal. We don't have to worry about breaking copyright if we're using it in the classroom. And yeah, that's true a lot. About a lot of things we do. Now this document here, this link is going to talk generally about education and how there are things we can use. So if we scroll down, to fall under this, some of these bullets, the institution must be accredited. You're all going to be fine with that. You need to use things as part of instructional activities. We all do that. It's got to be limited to a specific number of students enrolled in a specific class. That's sort of just saying I can't buy music for this class and then copy it and give it to all the directors in the county, right? We've never ever done that, right?
No.
Right. Okay. Just making sure. But it says it can be used for live or asynchronous class sessions. That covers what we're doing, right? We're live with kids. We're asynchronous sometimes because we're doing things online today. And only reasonable and limited proportions, or limited portions. So that's like, are you doing a song from a musical? You probably got that song. That doesn't give you the rights to use the entire musical. That's a whole different set of copyright. Things like that. So we're using the pieces and parts that we've gotten from a music store or things like that. So this has a lot to do with all education and what we're allowed. Down here where it says do not allow. So we're talking about electronic reserves, what they say, and I'm going to assume most of you know this. When you've copied something, you're allowed to use it in that moment, and you're not supposed to archive that and save that. Again, I'm sure none of you have ever done that, neither have I. Commercial document delivery, textbooks, conversion of materials from analog to digital, except when the converted material is used solely for authorized transmission and when a digital version of a work is unavailable or protected by technological measures. So that's a little more complicated, but basically a lot of you, from the survey we sent out that you filled out, pretty much everybody in here is on a Google Suite, and some of you have a little more than that, but we'll be talking a lot about Google since that covers pretty much everybody. And whatever you are using, probably some of the same concepts will work for your group. But when it comes to putting things in Google, you're putting in there for your class. You'll find other things and other documents that'll say it's okay for them to access it, but they can't like print it off and save their own copy and say it's a real copy for them kind of thing. However you feel like regulating that is up to you. What I do tell people is no matter how you do this or what you do, the real questions arise in what's applicable to your situation, because some of us have more funding than others, some of us have more resources than others. So there's a lot of things we can easily do or can't easily do, and you're just going to have to use your own judgment. But I don't think that there's a real copyright police standing outside your door to making sure that happens, and we'll hit that down below just for a sec. This Stanford research is actually pretty good. When you feel like a real dry moment, you're like, I have all this free time, what am I going to do with it? Go on to this. But what's really cool is this is a little more plain language, where it's talking here like if you want to show them a program that you've recorded or how many copies you can make of recordings and things like that. What we've heard basically is true. You can have copies of things, you can have recordings of things if you're archiving them or using them for educational purposes. What you can't do is turn around and sell that and make money off of it or give out multiple copies. But an archival copy is typically okay in those sorts of things. Copyright's a tricky thing. Copyright, if you buy the rights to a piece of music, let's say, you just have the rights to play, sing, perform that. You can do that for a concert, for people, whatever. But the second you broadcast that, that's a different copyright. Or the second you play somebody's recording of that piece, they probably have a copyright to that. That's an additional one. If you're just recording the audio, that's a different copyright than if you're doing audio plus video. So these all different places that you have to secure copyrights from if you're indeed gonna make multiple copies, whether that be selling them or just handing them out, or whether you're gonna post it online. But again, I'm not familiar with the copyright police, so you're going to have to do that as you see fit for you. Public art is another important one to mention. How many here are visual art teachers? Yeah. So what a lot of kids think is, oh, well, the Mona Lisa is, there's no copyright sitting on that. Anybody can take a picture and post that. That is absolutely true. But what picture are you posting? Because somebody may have a copyright on that picture. So one of the best things to do, and what this is talking about is, yeah, you can use things for personal use, but the second you put it public, you have to have permission to use that photocopy of that art. If you're just using if it's on some document you're giving your students or whatnot, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to using that. But if I just go into Google and I type in Mona Lisa, and I'll click my images. So 1 billion pictures. Okay, I want to copy and paste one of these into my document. Great. But how do I know that's under copyright? So if I click on settings, oh wait, do I want tools?
Yep, tools.
I want tools. Usage rights. Creative Commons license. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, that actually, Google has made this a lot easier. It was pretty gray in there before. That drop-down menu used to be like 5 items long, and it would be a commercial use with limited access and things like that. So now it's all kind of lumped now under Creative Commons licenses. You still have to watch out on that because if it's a Creative Commons license, but it's pulling from Pixabay and they want a subscription, then it gets a little hairy there too. But as long as you're looking for, in general, a piece of well-known, especially like if you're looking for Renaissance or Rococo or something like that, your chances are you're going to find it fairly easily when you search for Creative Commons license.
So I'm going to click on that, and it just kind of weeds out. Oh, that's a nice one right there.
A good one.
But you can see down here, now it says licensable. This could mean that they're free. It could mean that somebody just wants you to give them credit for their picture. That's just one way to protect yourself. It's an easy one-button click.
If you go to places like that with royalty-free sites, oftentimes they'll tell you what that particular license entails. Like if it is a totally royalty-free piece, then it'll say, fair for use. Sometimes when it's something that someone's created, they put it up as royalty-free. All they ask for is a credit in your either in the credit line or on the credits of your video or whatever you're doing.
I think OA or OMEA, I don't know if OAEA set this out, but this guidance has been pushed around quite a bit about what you can do with copyright. And this NFHS has come up with a lot of great questions and answers that are going to help you know if things are okay. The bottom line is, technically speaking, anything you post, you need to have a copyright for, unless it's original content.
We kind of skirt a little gray area there too. With a lot of you probably heard of the fair use guidelines for multimedia in education. I use and abuse that one too. That really the limit on that one ends once you leave the physical walls of your classroom. If you take an image, regardless of looking at the license, and you display it in your classroom so that you can teach your children about a certain movement or something like that, that's fine. But the moment you put it online, then it becomes a problem. That's where we're starting to get into now, is that we go, oh, well, it's in my Google Classroom. Yeah, but that's technically still part of the internet, and you're still technically publishing it again. So that's where the fair use guidelines kind of cut off.
So with these questions, these are great in here, especially if I scroll down. Will simply posting recordings to YouTube be okay? Answer, probably not. That's really specific. The bottom line is there are 3 or 4 huge houses of businesses that house all the licenses. Harry Fox, BMI, places like that. And they are trolling the internet for people that are using their copyrights without permission. But they really don't care about you. They care about the person that's monetizing it. They care about the person that did a cover and made a CD about it. So what we're finding is the worst case scenario right now is you get a notice from YouTube that says you need to take that down because there's some copyright stuff in it, and you say, yes.
It's amazing too how well that algorithm works. We'll talk a little bit later about our virtual art show, but we posted a video from one of our ensembles, and it was a recording done by a parent on an iPhone in a dark room, and it was, and the audio wasn't that great. YouTube still picked it up as copywritten music and flagged it as copywritten and said cannot be monetized. You only get so many of those before they decide to pull your. They said, okay, you violated our end user license agreement enough. You're done.
Yeah. This one right here says, can I have my students, not that one. Can I operate an online recital? This is the one I like. Answer, yes. BMI is one of those holding houses. It says, however, the streaming of the recital must be live and not archived. So essentially, can you live stream your next concert? Yeah, do it. But decide whether you're going to post that afterwards and how you're going to do that so that you're protected and your school's protected. Do you have a question?
Do you know if there's a difference with YouTube with video being unlisted versus public? If that gets picked up in the same kind of copyright, if it's not public video but only for those.
That's a good question.
It dings it as soon as you put it in your YouTube studio. So I don't think they care because it's already been uploaded to their platform. Good question.
But the one thing though is what I've been telling people when they ask about this is, you know, if it's an afternoon and you're driving and you hit a four-way stop sign and there's nobody for miles and you roll through that stop sign, are you about to get arrested? No. But was it legal? No. So that's where you've got to decide how that's working, right? So one of the things I think is important for us as teachers is integrity, and if we expect integrity and morality and rule following and all that from our students, we should be doing that. And if you've had a chance to look at the draft standards that are supposed to come out beginning of next year, here's a couple bullet points from them. Visual art. Develop a practice of ethical use of visual resources. Music. Interpret copyright law and discover how someone can protect his or her compositions once the individual has composed or created his or her work. So the new standards are addressing this, and I'm glad they are, but just know, like, it's hard for me to expect ethical behavior out of a student, and then me not follow it.
I was really concerned about the buy-in on that at first too, because when we took over what was the video production department is now our media arts department. The previous person that was there kind of turned a blind eye to using copywritten music in videos and other imagery that was kind of pulled from wherever. So I started telling my kids this year when they had me as a teacher, I said, okay guys, we're gonna put the brakes on using copyrighted images. I know you love Drake, you just can't be in your video. So I thought that for sure they were gonna buck me on it, but they didn't, and I thought back for a second, I'm like, oh yeah, as long as you give kids a reason why, they'll bend over backwards for you. So, I mean, once I told them, I'm like, I want you to I don't want to build in any bad habits. Yeah, you could say that, oh, I'm not showing this video anywhere, and that's fine, but as soon as let's say I let you get away with it, and that just becomes a habit of yours, and then down the road you get employed, and because it's a habit, you put that music in your video, somebody tags it somewhere and says, as a copyright violation, they sue your company, and your boss fires you. So that's, is trying to think about the more widespread, less egocentric view of why we do these things.
Now, are all of you're all Google schools? Okay, so you all have a YouTube account. You've maybe never accessed it or logged into it, but you all have it, and it's all got unlimited storage in your Google Drive and in your YouTube account. So I just opened up mine for school. If I click on my head and I go to my YouTube studio, you'll see things that I've uploaded, and this is my view. But when I click on videos, you'll see things that I've uploaded, halftime shows and things. So I try to be careful with copyright and things, so technically, can I post a halftime show? Well, no. I can stream it. I own the rights to perform it, but whoever wrote that song, they own the rights for it to be uploaded. But I'm not monetizing it. You can see as I'm scrolling down, there's one I did get zonked for. Was it the You Can Call Me Out one? I might have gotten rid of that. Anyway, it'll say in here, where's that?
Right where your mouse is.
Oh, right there. The reason this got zonked, I have no idea. Oh, that's the Africa. They didn't like what I put in there. So a copyright claim, that's just saying, we heard something that maybe somebody deserves money for, you better not monetize this. But what I like over here, when you're in your channel, right here, audio library. YouTube has a built-in gigantic library, let me click on it, of free audio. Thousands and thousands of free audio clips. You'll see the length here. You can search by title, although you'll have no idea what these are called. You can hear them if you want to see if you want that in your background. And then just click download, boom, and put it in your video however you put things in your videos. So any of these are safe. That's not something you're going to be singing at the next concert, but it might be cool to have as a background to maybe some gallery thing you're doing. So that'll be safe. All right, well that's enough for the boring stuff. We're going to move on to the fun stuff. Cameron, we've got digital tools.
Absolutely.
And hit us up with questions later. We'll stay as long as we can, but we can't have the marching band alone in the band room.
right. So give me a
switch?
switch. Switch me on the screen there. So a bunch of us from Ashland City Schools are using a program called Canvas this year. It's a learning management system. Essentially, it's very much like Google Classroom, except a little more on overdrive. We have a little more power and tools at our disposal. Is there anybody else here that's not from Ashland City Schools that uses Canvas? Okay, anybody use Schoology? What was the other one?
I think they're all Google
Otis,
Suite.
Otis, we use Otis.
Blackboard.
Blackboard too. Blackboard. Okay, very good. So I'm going to touch briefly on one of the tools that we use in Canvas called Kami. Anybody familiar with that one? Okay, Google Schools, you can actually use Kami too. It helps if your school has a subscription to Kami, and that's as easy as talking to your ed tech person or your technology department. I know that's not always the easiest thing, but you can use it with a free account too. You're just a little more limited in what you can do. But the great thing about Kami is that, let me tell you, the not so great thing about Google Assignments is that when you post a PDF in there, it's exactly what it is, a PDF, a portable document, right? You post a PDF in general because you don't want people editing it. The great thing about Kami is you can take your PDFs, it'll duplicate a copy for every kid in your class, and then they can annotate it, and you can annotate it too. Now that's great if you're a high school person and you're doing rubrics and things like that. I use it for rubrics all the time. For elementary and intermediate, even middle school, there's some cool applications for that too. So what I did is I am running this through my Canvas account right now. So if it looks a little different from Google Classroom, it's because it is, but it's the external tool Kami will look the same in Google Classroom too. Let me see here. Let's go to draw the face. And so when I launch this here, it says launch external tool. So we're going to launch the external tool.
And this works really well if you have great internet.
Yeah. So that's the other fun part about working on a limited system here, especially if you're not logged in, is that it does take a while to load. So while it's loading, what I'm going to be bringing up here in a moment is a worksheet for drawing in Symmetry. It's basically drawing on a grid view. There we are.
Hey.
Okay. So what I did was in my I keep a folder in my Google Drive of these PDFs. And I have different folders for different classes. I have a class resources folder that a couple of the teachers can access, and we can drop PDFs in there and what have you. So I just pulled this. When I upload this to Kami, it works seamlessly with Google Drive. And it says, do you want to access this? I was able to bring this up, and then it makes a copy for each student. But you notice along the side over here, there's some tools that we don't typically have in Google Classroom. So over here we've got text-to-speech. The ones I really like here are markup and the drawing tool right there. Shapes is really cool too. You can actually import images from here as well. So I'm just going to go with, right now I'll go with drawing, and then we'll select the black pen right here, and then we can continue on here. Now, the reason I chose this is because I have a stylus available. It's still not very easy when you're working vertically. Then you can go through and just kind of annotate right on the rubric. Cool thing is if you notice up at the top there, it keeps saving. It's saving changes, save. Every mark that's made on here is auto-saved. And as soon as you do this, every kid that accesses it, it makes a copy in a folder in your drive. You automatically get a Kami folder. You automatically get that popped in there, and it changes the name of each document to that student's last name, owl drawing. And then you'll have all those. You can go back through and look either in Kami or you can look through in Google Drive as well. So hit done on that one, and that automatically submits it. There is a submit tool on there you can use, but you really don't need it because everything auto-saves anyway. And music people might be going, well, that's really all well and good. What good does that do me? Let me show you. Oh, I can't find my guitar one. Let me go to, let's go to music 2.
So as we were talking about using Cami, he told me all the ways that he would use it, and that helped me think about how would I use that in the music classroom. And instantly, I mean, the easiest thing you can do is open their built-in, because they have it built in, staff paper. Just open it.
Oh, yeah.
And have them, okay, today we're going to practice treble clefs. Or let's do a challenge. You all have track pads. How well can you draw a treble clef? Let's see who did it the best. I scanned, if this is the one he's opening, I'm not sure, but I literally grabbed a random middle school sax piece and scanned it. You could grab anything. And I'm also thinking, we got this big thing about literacy. And yeah, so
Okay.
maybe I just want, okay, in Cami, open up this piece of music and circle all the G's, because we're practicing, make sure we know G. Or, hey, I think it would be interesting if we changed the dynamics and made it louder here and gradually softer there. How would you notate that on the music? So they're not just talking about what they're doing, they're actually notating it. So they might, okay, oh, so you wanted me to draw in a crescendo here, and I need to write decrescendo in there, and anything you can think of that's just helping kids touch the music and make it more tactile, even though we're using the computer for this. But the reason I like using the computer for this is when it's done, it just shows up in my email or in my Google Drive, as opposed to having to.
I just changed your music.
Oh, thank you.
significantly. You're welcome.
Do you,
But-
do you ever have the kids read off of their music, like in rehearsal setting, read off of their computers? Or do you still?
I haven't done that. We're not a one-to-one school.
Oh,
That would be great, but I can see the value in that all day. I've done it where I've projected. Obviously, that doesn't work super well when you've got different instrument families going on, but it still gets them saying things out loud and really vocalizing that, which is great. All right. But just imagine, like, he just highlighted a couple spots. You could do that before you send it out to the kids and say, look at the highlighted section, write down the rhythm there and practice your note, like whatever.
Are you able to dictate where like text boxes go on a worksheet?
Yes.
Or is that completely up to the kid to like add text
No,
boxes?
you can add text boxes, well, that's a tongue twister, and they can too. A lot of my kids, when they're annotating the rubric, I've had them write their reasoning right underneath. You just drag a text box out, they can type right in it. For Chromebooks, that's really nice too. It's a little trickier on your phone, but when you're using a Chromebook, that works really well.
So you can choose where to put text boxes and then send them out to the kids and
Yes.
then have the ones that you put on there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is when you mouse, so any mark that you mouse over on there, you saw me using the box highlighter there for a second, the text box, whoever makes the mark, when you mouse over it, it'll tell you with the little initial icon, like mine says CD, and then like if the kids is there, it'll be in a different color and say their initials.
I'm gonna hijack this for 30
Sure, please
seconds because I have a new favorite tool as of a couple days ago. It's called Talk and Comment. So if you want to write that down, Talk and Comment. It's an extension that's added to Chrome. And if you see, whenever I have this computer up, there's a little microphone in the middle on the right. This thing blew my mind. It's an online free extension that if you click on it, it's going to use your computer mic to record anything you want and then automatically copy a code to your clipboard. And here's what happens. So I'm going to click this button. And now I'm recording, and it's beautiful, and life is grand. And thank you very much for Talk and Comment. I'm done. Boom. It just copied this link, so I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to put it somewhere. So let me just click my drive and make something new. Oh, let's do a Google form. So I'm making a new Google form, and my question is what dynamic is this music? Okay? And then I'm going to paste that thing that was already copied. So imagine I pasted that into Cami. It could be audio directions. It could say, hey, which measure did you just hear? Now this comes through my computer mic, so I'd have to hold my phone up to it. Maybe I sing it, maybe I play it. Now, let's make this form real. Now look what the question looks like. It changes it into a play icon. And I click play.
And it's beautiful, and life is grand, and thank you very much for talking and comments.
And it stays somewhere in the internet universe for 90 days, and then they delete it. You'll never find it. You don't know where it is until you have to come back to whatever you had copied, right? You have to find that. But I've emailed it. It worked in an email. I tried a Google Doc. It worked that way. I've tried putting it as an annotation because it's just code, right? And worst case scenario, whatever you put it in didn't recognize the code to make that cool box. But the code's there and you can click on it and then it'll open up another browser with the box. And then after 90 days, it disappears.
So after 90 days, if you were to, if someone were to look at that form after 90 days, then they wouldn't be able to play that.
Right. You'd have to redo it.
Flip me back real quick.
Huh.
Also to kind of chime in on what he was saying before, this is Cammy's landing page once you log in. And so it can work obviously with Google Drive. You can create a Google Classroom assignment, those of you guys who are straight up Google schools. When I hit new blank page, it asks me what kind of blank page I want. Do I want a line page for writing? It actually gives me loose leaf paper. I could have a grid page there, so if you're doing any kind of grid work. Music sheet, I'll hit right here and then I'll hit add. And it gives me blank stat sheet there. Okay.
Good?
Yep.
All right, let's move on to all the cool stuff we can do in the Google Suite.
So one of
Are you
the
doing that through here or here?
No, let's go through yours first.
Okay.
I'll get set up here. One of the cool things that came about through our change of our hats that we wear as tech coaches was they recommended that we become Google educators. That way we could really help people because we are primarily a Google Suite school that just adopted a new system too. So what we ended up doing was getting Google certified, and through that Google certification, it took you through some classes and modules, but we really got to see all that the suite can do, and it's ridiculously powerful. Especially some of the 3D things that are available. We'll touch on those in just a bit. Go ahead.
So what you're looking at is what we consider a hyperdocument. So it's any document that's online that if you click it, you go somewhere on the internet. Anymore, we were talking about when we did this presentation, okay, what kind of PowerPoint do we want? And immediately Cameron said, no, we're not having a PowerPoint, we're gonna have a hyperdoc. Because that's more useful, like just having a picture about what they talked about versus actually being able to go there. And you've been attached to this, it's in your email now. So anything I change on this document changes live for your stuff. So I don't have to send out version 2 and version 3. I can just keep updating this, and maybe I put up in the top corner the date it was last updated or something, but that's a great way to do that. Google Slides, that's basically PowerPoint, but online, right? Hopefully we've all used Google Slides in some way. Really fun to do. I actually use it sometimes just to create a picture for a backdrop for a screen or something, because you can download any of that stuff as a PDF if you want, or a JPEG. Lots of cool things to do in there. And how many of you guys are using or have used or using something similar to Google Classroom? And for how many of you that's a mandate? And how many of you do it because it's sometimes convenient and you like to do it? Okay. All right. So every school's a little different. Actually, they're a lot different now with everything that's required and not required. And the one thing I think in talking with some of my staff with Google Classroom is there's no way a kid can say they didn't get it. If you're sending out an announcement and you send it to the classroom, or Ashland folks, we're using Canvas now to do the same thing, you know it's in their email. There's no typing it in wrong. There's no, oops, that got bumped out because it's all in the same system. That's kind of the best thing about Google Classroom. We know they're getting the information. We've started moving lots of things we do that would normally be done in person to Google Classroom or Google Documents, even if we are in person, for the sake of I know everybody's got it, everybody can do it, and I know if everybody did do it. Something as simple as, doing the marching band just did their awards, who's the best marcher and whatever, and they did all that through a Google form, because even the kids were like, well, I don't want to count all that. So we do it all digitally now. So we know everybody's got it. We know if somebody tried to do it twice, because it checks their email. So I would definitely recommend that, because paper-wise, probably the thing I'm least organized about is keeping track of paper. but I like the idea of having access to everything I ever need, no matter where I am, as long as the internet exists. So I like keeping things digital.
One of the things I'm going to touch on a little bit later is in my YouTube account that I have, I've got a couple playlists set up, and I've got one of mine is Distance Learning Essentials. I started this when we were all at home, and I needed to make tutorial videos for school and for my kids at home and things like that. But the cool thing is a Google or a YouTube playlist doesn't only have to be your videos. You can put other videos from other people made in there as well. So in my links on that hyperdoc that we're talking about, one of them is how to make interactive Google Slides for your elementary classroom. A lot of people have been doing that. They've been using Bitmojis and things like that for their to kind of represent their classroom as a home away from home. And this takes you through using it. And essentially what they're doing when they do that is you're making a slideshow that's also a hyperdoc. So instead of going through the slideshow slide by slide in chronological order, you are clicking on hyperlinks that take you to a position in another slide. So it'll skip around, kind of go back and forth. That way the kids can go to different rooms. You know, you got to go to your music special. You can go there. You know, and the images in there can be hyperlinked just as well as text too. That's how that works. So I'm not going to take you through that right now, but just know the link is there and you can watch that. The video I selected is not by me, but the person who did it set up a really cool elementary classroom that way.
I've used different playlists just to house content. Right now I've got one for copyright. There's a great, if you want a couple quick answered questions, look up Gordon Firemark. He's an entertainment and copyright attorney, and he does like 3-minute videos. And you know, it's like, can I do this? Can I do that? And like, that's the title of each video. It'll show this pep rally we just did. We'll talk about that later. But this copyright playlist, if I click on it, it's a lot of videos of Gordon, how to get permission for using a song in film, songs sung in a script, rules for using copyright material. And each of these is like 2 or 3 minutes long. He's the dude. He knows his stuff. And a lot of times you watch them and you're like sad at the end because it wasn't the answer you wanted, but at least you know it's legal. So there's nothing in this playlist that's original, and I'm not breaking copyright by doing that. I'm just housing things. So if I want to make a whole playlist of things that involve impressionism or classical music or stuff by a certain artist or a certain arranger, I can just have those sitting there, and I can just tell people to go to my YouTube page. Because again, you all have a YouTube page. Whether you've ever used it or not, you still have one. So use it. It doesn't take long to just drag stuff in that you think are going to help your students. 'Cause at least with us musicians, we know the more they listen to a certain style, the better they are at it. And I know with artists, the more you see examples of good art, the better. So a lot of times when you guys were walking in, I had literally just typed into Google art and music and then clicked videos. And there were so many things up. And so I was just playing that in the background so that we had some good music, some decent art popping up, and just trying to connect them because kids all want to learn digitally. They all like that.
There's a couple of different things on here that we could go through, but there's quite a bit, and I don't want to talk you to death. But if you're looking through the Google Suite section and you go, oh, I've heard of that, but I don't know about it specifically, make sure you ask us afterwards. We're going to kind of move through real quick and just touch on a couple. But Google Groups are a great thing to use. If you're for older students, if you want to have a discussion on something and you want everyone to participate, it's Ashland people, it's akin to our discussions that we have in Canvas right now. So if you don't have that opportunity, or if you're a purely Google school, you can use Google Groups to set up a discussion question. And then the kids can also make new topics. They can answer each other's. You can make a rule that says before you continue on, you have to comment on one other piece. And it's one that's kind of been, Google does a really great job of inventing things about once every 10 years. And they make it and then they leave it alone and don't touch it again. And Google Groups is kind of like that. It's super bare bones, but it does work very well. You know, same thing when you're putting things into Google Forms using the video and the file uploads on there. That's a really cool thing Marty showed you about there. I wanted to touch on just a few more things that can kind of make kids active participants in your classes instead of passive learners. Because is there anybody here who's like at home right now, still remote? We're all in person? Okay, cool beans. One of the things we're thinking about is we're trying to plan for eventualities. You know, I really hoping that it doesn't happen, but you never know. You got to kind of plan for the worst. So we're kind of looking to see what can we do to kind of to bring back that group participation. And one of the things, can you set up on your computer a Jamboard link real quick and send it to me because this one's acting up. One of the things is Jamboard. Jamboard requires a district subscription, but it's technically part of the Google Suite. You just have to have it turned on by your administrator. That's what we had it for a long time, or for the when we got our G Suite license, and we went to access it and it didn't work. So we talked to our district tech guy, and he's like, "Yeah, great, let's turn it on." Turned it on. A couple days later, it works. And the cool thing about Jamboard is that where'd you send it to me or yours? You. Okay. Cool thing about Jamboard is that it's a
I'll turn it
drawing
back
board.
to me while you're looking it up.
Thanks. It's a drawing board that basically works like a virtual whiteboard that anybody can annotate. You can use it in conjunction with Google Meets. If you're having a Google Meet, you can throw this up there and have it side by side so that they can see what you're writing in real time. There's a tiny little lag, but it's not too bad. Tell them a little more.
Well, while he's getting that up, I was instantly thinking about collaborative things. As a high school band director, I think I'd struggle to find the best use for this, but I can see even in art, if you were talking about a certain concept and you came over and you used one of these tools, whether it be inserting a picture, a shape or whatever, if I'm just going to draw and I can pick whatever color I want. So let's say I just made a simple, and that's with a trackpad, so I want a little leeway on how beautiful that shape was. But if I did that and then I said, okay, Susie, add another element to that, she could add it and everybody got it, and then Bobby over there, fill in a color that complements what Susie did. It could be this huge collaborative thing that everybody gets a part of. So right now, if he gets it rolling, he's got it on his end, and anything he types or draws in there would pop in. Or I could straight up insert, and we had talked about this in when we were talking, where were we talking about? Cami, where Cami creates that unique version for that kid. What if I added an image and that image was that symmetry drawing, or that image was a piece of music? Then everybody's seeing it. And if one person added to it, the next person would see that, but the next person could add to it. So you could go across the room and say, circle 1 B flat. And then you could tell somebody in art, circle an element that shows whatever concept you're working on, then everybody sees it in real time. So I think of the two kind of similar ideas, but with different outcomes. Did you get that one working?
Almost.
Okay, so I don't have any image ready to throw in there, but then again, you can also put a text box. I also thought, some of those lesson starters where what if you popped up on the screen, the concept of the day. So the concept of the day is impressionism, and then you have those columns of know very little, know a lot, know everything, I'm an expert in, and then just have the kids put a dot on their Jamboard on which column. Then you know at the beginning of the lesson where the class thinks they're at, and then you could wipe the board, and at the end of class, where do you think your knowledge is there as they're leaving? They could all hit that on their device. And it doesn't have to be a one-to-one device thing, but you could just have a couple throughout the room, but we're trying to right now be careful about people touching the same stuff. So that's one consideration. But it looks like Cameron's starting to draw something on his end.
I'm really trying. My stylus isn't working.
You'll have to use your finger. I have yet to buy an Apple Pen for my
I'm gonna
iPad.
get rid of this lousy football you drew here.
How dare you? It was a jelly bean.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so, and I don't know if you're noticing, but that's his head as a highlight. So I know who's doing that on my screen. What? Anyway, so let me flip it to his screen, and you should see about the same thing. You're just seeing the iPad version of it, right? So it all happens in real time. Whatever delay just has to do with power of your internet. Yeah. So the Jamboard for me is useful because it's interactive. So, but if you don't want everybody to have a say in everybody's thing, I'd stick with Kami.
The Kami's good, and so is Google Assignments too, because just like with Kami, you can set make a copy for each student.
Okay, this one's one of my faves.
What do you got? Oh,
That's
okay,
cool.
great, thanks. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know I was up on the screen. Good, tech coach, good. So, how many people are familiar with Google Arts and Culture? Cool, a couple people.
Shame.
Sweet.
You all need to know this. It's good.
It's awesome. A couple years back, I want to say maybe 2015 or so, they decided they wanted to offer a museum experience and cultural experiences to people who can't get away from their locale. You know, I mean, and it works for us in Ashland. There are a lot of people who never venture outside of Ashland, and it's unfortunate because there are a lot of cool opportunities, you know, a little ways up the road or down the ways on 71, you know, but some people don't have that luxury. So the great thing is, if you have an internet connection, you can access all kinds of art, music, dance, theater opportunities right here. A couple I'll show you right off the bat, and they've been putting in new new things each time. Every time I turn around, there's some new little applet in here or something else, like turn yourself into a Van Gogh, transform your masterpieces, hang a Van Gogh in your house. You know, this is augmented reality right here, so that's kind of cool. But there's also there's 360 views. There are of museums. There are Google Earth tours that you can walk through museums on here. That you can walk through actual concerts in play. Let me bring up a few real quick. I want to just talk real quick. Let me look up Van Gogh here since I've searched that before. Let me look up actually Van Gogh Starry Night. There we go. We've got an online exhibit. Let's see if I actually click the item here. They have a really cool feature called Gigapixel. And Gigapixel, it's going to take a while to load because it's Gigapixel. It shows the image, but a lot of times what they do is they take it out of the frame. This was photographed outside the frame, so you can actually see the raw edges of the canvas. And upon first inspection, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's great, it's Starry Night. But you can keep zooming in. Let's let that clear up just
Isn't that insane?
a bit there. I mean, it's slow to load.
It'll catch up.
Yeah. There we go. That's starting to clear now. There we are. Like right around that top region right there. I mean, if I mouse over, you can see the edge of the canvas there. We can go a little closer. And just, you know, I think that's okay. That's all we get. But it's just fantastic to the point where you can see the shadows on the edges of the paint. It's really neat to compare. You can compare pieces that way too. I remember when I taught elementary, I did Van Gogh Starry Night versus Edvard Munch's Starry Night, and we looked at the difference in the painting style. How Van Gogh used his palette knives to swatch onto the canvas, whereas Munch's were really thin oil paints, and you could just see the texture of the canvas all the way through. And you know, it was so cool. The kids are kind of reaching up like this, you know, like I wish you could feel it, you know. But that's a really neat thing. I want to show you too. I don't know if this is going to play nice with YouTube, but I will try. The 360 concerts. There, right in the middle.
Okay. This stuff is...
And hit full screen on that.
Okay, so we've got a concert, but I can grab this screen and move it. So if I want to know exactly what the cello player is doing on this piece, I can. I can skip ahead like with anything. I'm just afraid with the internet here it might lock up. And I go, oh, that's the violin going. Okay, let's check that out. And that one's a very simple example. They have ones that are full orchestra examples, sitting right in the center of the orchestra, and you can spin right around and see all the woodwinds, the audience, or whatever. And you can do that while it's playing. So they actually, Google took a camera on a little tripod that had a 360-degree lens and recorded the whole thing in high quality, so you can decide which angle you want it at. And they have quite a few of those, and they've even incorporated those into galleries, so you can go at your own pace and move around a gallery and pick the direction you want to go. If you've ever played on like Google Maps, like the Street View, same concept, except they're during a concert.
Can you flip me back there real quick?
Yeah.
So one of the things that Google's trying to, in arts and culture, that they're trying to do too, is get every museum space in the world done through a virtual tour. And they're making incredible progress. It would take you, if you want to find one that's a specific one, you want to search it, because you can just scroll through here and there's hundreds of them. But I'm just going to, I saw a Louise Bourgeois spider there, I think. So I'm going to go there. Let's just go to Kansas City. There we are. And it works just like Google Earth, where you can actually walk through and go in different places. I've not tried this one yet, so I'm not entirely sure where it's going to let me go. I don't think I want to go in the construction zone. But I can actually go in the doors and places and actually click on artwork too, which I picked the completely wrong example for that. Let me go. Let's go here real quick to Nigeria. There we go. And some of them you can just walk right up to and zoom in and see. Oftentimes, some of them, when you mouse over them, they'll be hyperlinked, and you can check out the credit line. You can look at the actual, piece of artwork. But you notice there I've got a three-way arrow, so I can choose where I'm going to go next. If I want to go into this room over here, I'll just double tap there, mouse around and look at the pictures. If it's going to give me.
Yeah, so the chances of us getting to do
outside.
field trips this year are going to be pretty small, but you could still take your class on a field trip virtually.
Speaking of which, how about the World Culture?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right.
So Cameron and I are doing what we're calling a World Culture trip a year from next summer, so 22. That kind of inspired me to look up some more Google things. And Google Earth, different than Google Maps, but Google Earth, if you go there, you have an account because you have a Google account, although if you've never logged in, you'll log in for the first time, it'll come up. So I already clicked on it, already logged in. Imagine if you set this up very similar, I'll show you how to set up in a second, but very similar to any slideshow you would do, except now we're interactive. So I made a project based on where this World Culture trip was going. So I'm just going to click Present. And what I could also do is share this with any student, any faculty member. So I'm going to click Present. So now it's circling the globe. For us, it's going to find Ashland High School, because I told it that's where to start. So it's going to zoom in on Ashland High School, and this will go a lot quicker given a whole different set of internet, right? And as it starts, see it's spinning like crazy right now. It'll zoom in Google Maps on the site I want it. And then up here, it's going to have whatever I entered. And what I did was I entered this bit of text and this picture about our World Culture trip. And then I also entered a picture, and these I got right off the internet, and I'll show you how they do that. And this normally would scroll really fast, but that's just a picture of Ashland High School. Then I can click whatever's next on my trip, and next on my trip was we've got to get to the airport. So now our trip takes us to the airport, and we could read about what's happening on our trip. And then after we hop on the plane, we get our next one, and this is what's going to fly us across the ocean to our stop in Switzerland. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is imagine a lot of us are islands. We kind of like exist in our own little universe, and we don't get to see anybody or talk to anybody. But you have other teachers in the district. So what if you shared one of these with art and music teacher, or a high school teacher and an elementary teacher, however you wanted to, and each of you plopped in a couple trips along your journey. Within that trip, you could look at, if you're in France, you could look at art of certain regions or a certain time period, and then music of a certain time period, and then plop in another region. And it can turn into this sort of cross-curricular event where neither of you had to find that common planning time to do it. You just had to create the document. And then when it's done, everything you've put in, they've put in. I wish this was loading better.
Yes.
But what's also cool about this is I can connect any kind of digital document. So for this, I've connected little videos of the places we're going. I've connected pictures, websites, and it's as simple as Google searching. So I'm just going to get out of that because it does not like that right now.
With a computer with a decent graphics processor in it,
Right.
you can zoom in a little closer. Google Earth works now primarily in 3D, so they've made 3D renderings of just about every major city that you can. So you can do an actual walkthrough just by clicking on the arrows around there. It would also be great, if you're talking about art or music history and you want to show, like for example, I'm talking about Moon and we're talking about the Scream and we say, well, he was screaming because, the sky was very red at the time. They didn't know it, but Mount Krakatoa was erupting on the other side of the world. Nobody knew. They just thought the world was ending. Let's take a look where that is. Well, you can imagine that news wouldn't spread that quickly back in the 1800s.
So let's just say I forgot we were going to Sydney, Australia. Oops. I can go into here and I can type in whatever. I'm going to put the pin where I want it, right? So I can type in anything. I can type in any zip code. I can type in a city. It'll put the pin there. And then I can create this page. Now, how do I add stuff to this? This is what showed up in the box over here. But I just click plus, and then it goes straight to Google. And it says, do you already have a picture you want to upload? You could do that. Do you just want to click an image search in Google? And we decided we're going to Sydney, Australia. And it's just going to give me pictures. So do I just want to okay, that's my new one for Sydney. Boom. I didn't have to download or connect. It just has it. Do I want to put a YouTube link to something we're going to see? Some tourist has already been there. I can do that. Do I have something in my Google Drive? Do I want to connect it to a website? So when I click it, it actually goes to a web page that talks about something. So you can connect all that within this Google Earth, and the kids really feel like they're going somewhere because they can see it pull out and fly across the ocean kind of thing.
Let me back. We're going to talk about the virtual art show.
Yep.
So part of our, being stuck at home in springtime was we had to decide what we were going to do with our arts festival. And every year, this was going to be our 50th. In Ashland, we get the departments together, and we have an arts festival for K12 in the gym. We have concerts at our theaters right in the same area of the high school. It goes for 3 days. There's different events with visiting artists. It's a big to-do, and this was going to be even a bigger one because it was the 50th. So we said that maybe the 50th could happen in 2021, and we said, well, what do we do for now? Because, we want to still honor our kids' work, so we decided, well, what can we put together as a virtual show? And moreover, what can we do so that it's not a crazy amount of work? That we can all collaborate together without one person being burdened with everything. Now, obviously, the site had to get built, so I took care of that. But I tried to do it in a way that everyone could collaborate and it would kind of build itself along the way. So a couple of things you want to take into account. And I've listed these here for you, so if you want to visit our virtual site, it's still live. You can take a look. The distance learning essentials are on there too. I did a whole workshop, a virtual workshop on building a virtual art show back in May with Tri-County, and that's on there too. You can watch that, and I'll take you through step by step how to work these little applets and things like that we put in. I also threw in a basic Google Sites basic tutorial in case you know of it, but you're not familiar with it. I've got a 17-minute video on how to go step by step to build a basic site. It's building a classroom site, but it takes you through how to do hyperlinks and things like that and make new pages. Things to consider before you do this, kind of think about your available technology. If you're in a place that's got a pretty high-speed connection, that's good. If you're at home and you've got a decent connection, that's good. Here we may struggle a little bit. I can almost anticipate it. But, you got to kind of work within your means. As far as your time commitment goes, it doesn't really take that long. You're going to spend a day probably building your site, and then another day just tweaking it and making it look pretty because it's addictive. And then after that, it pretty much starts building itself along the way. You also want to take into effect the SEPA and COPA laws, which are Children's Internet Privacy Act and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And basically what we have to do is make sure that we don't draw attention to kids, put their likenesses online in a way where they can be easily recognized. I mean, obviously through performances, you're going to see kids there, but you have a really hard time zooming in that far, so that's how we can do that. If there is a kid that you can see very carefully, we make sure we only list them by first name. You also want them to check to make sure that those people are not on the do not photograph list, do not put my likeness on internet list. I guarantee you all your schools probably have one. All you have to do is ask your secretary for it. So check that stuff first. We didn't run into too many snags like that at all. There was one or two questionable. We ran it by the superintendent, and he said, here's what you do, and we were good to go. So basically when we're doing this, you want to kind of consider ease of navigation. People don't want to go through your site and try and dig. You want to avoid what's called mystery meat navigation, where you're looking, you've got so much stuff on the screen that it's really hard to tell. So what I tried to do on this one is, for the nice thing about Google Sites is up at the top there, it always gives you a navigation bar. And you get to decide where that is. You can have your navigation bar down the side, over the top, whatever you want. But at the same time, I thought, well, maybe people might overlook that. So we also made a big to-do of it right here on the screen. So we've got your galleries. You can either go to visual art or performing arts. Okay? And that makes it nice and easy for the parents to get to. On the home page too, we also gave some general information about what we do and why we do it. We threw in articles about the art show. We kind of put that out there, and I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. The superintendent has an Instagram account that he's very faithful to updating, so we made sure we threw in any art or music relevant pieces on there. Cool thing is those are little embedded apps that will, I could play this concert right here, right in that window itself. I tried to make sure that I gave people credit if they contributed. Dynamic Audio provided us a clip or two, so I made sure I gave them credit. Ashland Source contributed one of our concerts, so I made sure I gave them credit. And then so for visual art, we obviously had a lot of pictures throughout the year, and we saved stuff throughout the year, and we didn't get to it all because the building got locked, and then there was only certain times we get in. We had construction going on at the time and all that. It got a little hairy with this in regards to that. So we kind of relied on what we took pictures of already, and most of your art teachers are photo nuts anyway, so we're constantly going, ooh, look at that one, click. So we had a bunch of stuff on our phones already and on our tablets and things like that we could use. So what I did was, and this is all in the video, the how-tos of this are all in the video. For each building, I set up a Google Photo account, or a Google Photo album. Through my Google Suite, I have Google Photos. Again, because it's Google, it's kind of old and clunky, but it works. And I was able to make one for the high school, for the middle school, for Taft, for Edison, for Reagan. And when I did that, I shared those albums with the art teachers that were part of that building. If there were a couple art teachers, then a couple art teachers got access, and they were able to dump their photos right in there, and I had access to it because it was my account. So what I did was, I thought, well, let's just put those albums up there. Google Photos doesn't have a way to do that. So what I had to do was I had to kind of scramble real quick and go, okay, we're building the albums, how am I going to do this? Let's check a third-party app. And I found this bizarre app called publicalbum.org. It's a third-party app. It's super clunky. I don't think that English is the person's first language because it's a little hard to read in places. But it works really well. There's no security issues. We checked it all out. And the way it works is this. And I have no internet. Let's try that one more time. The way it works is it takes the pictures in I give a shareable link to to Google Photos, and then you got it up there? Yeah, give me a switch there. Thank you. So I give a shareable link to Google Photos, and it fires up this applet right here. It took a while to load last time. It may still take a while to load now. Once it does, you might have to hit refresh a couple times. there's little arrows off to the side. You can click through that album and all the images appear right in those squares. Scroll down just a little bit so they can see real quick. So we've got one for high school. We've got one for middle school. We've got one for Taft right there. Notice we listed the art teachers off to the side. We didn't list the kids' names. We figured that would have been, a good deal of work there. It would have been a little tricky, not to mention we got to consider SEPA and COPA. And we have one for each school there. Let's see if the top one loaded yet. Yeah. Give me
Even worse.
Yeah, give me a reload real quick up on the main page.
So this is just going to read those pictures out of that folder that you made in Google. So you still house the pictures. You didn't send them anywhere.
Well, while we're waiting on that, go back up to the top of the navigation bar and let's go to performing arts.
Okay. I'm going to leave that open
Sure.
in case it...
Yeah, just in case it loads in the meantime. So on the performing arts side, because I have a YouTube account and because Marty has a YouTube account, we started putting in concerts. And I had recorded a couple for our choir director, and Marty had a couple, and so that we had enough to get us started. So we uploaded those to ours. And then we had other people contribute as well, and start our
right
orchestra director, or choir director. Thank you. That's a
You're
great
welcome.
one.
I made that the thumbnail on purpose.
Yeah, because you're awesome like that. So we were able to compile those. Scroll down a little bit there.
And with this all being a big surprise, COVID, and if we knew ahead of time, a lot of things would have been different, but we would have had more things recorded so that we could have put up there. But again, I refer back to the copyright thing, whether you decide this is smart and safe for you.
Back on.
I'm going to click over. Hey, there you go, Kim.
Oh, good deal. Okay, so then scroll through. Oh, good. Thank you.
It's
that
rolling.
works. So basically, if you hit play, it'll scroll through every 10 seconds. I believe you can set it to. Or you can just click manually through them. But we were able to upload it's reading right now from that Google Photos album, which made really easy work for me as the webmaster and really easy work for the rest of the department as well to dump things in there. Let me see what else. But the one thing you want to kind of think of after you get this rolling is you have your website. It's gorgeous, right? The problem is that you and your department are the only people who know about it. So then it's time to publicize a little bit. So the first thing, easiest thing to do is tell your ed tech coordinator and get that website on get it up on your homepage for your school or for your school district. And that's just as easy as once you publish your page, you get a unique URL. If you want to, domains are cheap. If you don't want sites.google.com/goarrow/2020 virtual art show, you could, for $13 a year, buy a domain name and just have it redirect, and that's a lot easier too. But you give it to your ed tech person, they put it on the homepage. But then after that, this becomes not only great for your school, but it's great for advocacy in general. And if all your unified art and music, and if you have theater and dance are all in this together, it's a great advocacy piece. So make sure you contact at least the papers about it. We contacted Ashland Source, Times Gazette. I think WMFD covered at least a blurb in there about it. But we really got the word out there too. Anybody who does do a piece, and Ashland Source did a big piece for us. I linked the article there, and I actually found an embed, a third-party app that would let me embed the little header from the newspaper in there too, which was pretty cool because it brought up the image from the newspaper that day.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Thanks for listening, folks. We're going to be around if you have any questions. I bet a lot of you need a break. But thanks for coming in and listening to what we had to say.